Hey everyone, Galen here. So before we begin, I need to give the dreaded content warning. There's a bit of cursing in this episode. Now, while normally we take care to bleep any hard cursing that's accidentally let out during recording, at one point a specific profane song title comes up. After some discussion, we feel that the song in question is of significant enough artistic and conversational merit that we have made the decision to leave the song title uncensored. So prepare your sensitive little ears and enjoy the show. Thank you. If you follow our podcast, you're probably well aware of our love for Asian, European, and even American composers. Well, today we bring a little bit of balance by celebrating an Australian giant while doing our small part to bring a little bit of justice to the gaming world. It's time to celebrate the work of Mick Gordon. Welcome to the Music Arcade. Hello everyone, I'm Galen, the SoundGuy Firestone.
I'm Ranakel.
And I'm Eddie, and I'm also ready to rip and or tear.
You're also ready to take more Tylenol by the sounds of it. You okay there, bud?
I am also being ripped and or torn.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It all balances out.
For those in the audience, I either got the flu or COVID, and that's not a good roulette to play.
I'm still almost impressed with myself for managing to be mostly fully isolated and still managing to catch a cold during the pandemic. Like, damn. That takes skill.
I took my dispositions. I got sick twice at the start of autumn, and now I'm good for the rest of the month.
There you go.
Apparently.
Stuff like that is what makes me appreciate that on our previous episode, Rana ad-libbed the fact that the microphone was something that we did not share between us, because that would be worrying right now.
Exactly.
Admittedly, yes.
We take the health and safety precautions of our bids very seriously.
We are all separated by entire oceans.
Okay, confession time. Back during the episode when I was in the process of moving and that you guys did alone and I just did that cameo at the end, the final take I used, I actually did trip over my chair on that one. I had
either commitment to the gag or just...
Oh no, I just tripped. That was not commitment to the gag. That was me at a jank hotel setup working somehow.
You just gotta roll with it.
Just gotta roll with it. Yes, indeed.
Anyway, Mick Gordon, eh?
Yeah. So I will admit that we're a little behind the times on this guy. We do talk about him fairly regularly. He's a fairly constant, I don't want to say constant, but he's a fairly regular presence on this podcast. We talk about him a lot. And very recently we had, he came out with a scathing, open letter to id Software and Bethesda, and
that was basically 2 years of accumulated resentment, trying to break through to shed a little light on his professional pride and just the truth of his side of the situation.
And I read through that entire document, and it was devastating.
Oh yeah, I think Medium said that at the top that he posted it on Medium, and it said like estimated reading time 2 hours and a half or something, and I actually read through it all as well.
I don't think I took that long to read it, but
I didn't either. But still, you know, it shows how long it was. And, it has all the receipts.
I was the wise if shallow one and kept it to the TLDR.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and this is something that I've been kind of holding back. I 100% believe Mick. I know there's a lot of, like, he said, she said going on, but I 100% believe him, and I'll tell you why. Every last thing that he documented, every last abuse, every last insult, every last corporate just horse's assery, that's happened to me. Not all at once like that. I have to admit, I'm almost impressed by how thoroughly he was screwed over at every turn. But I have had every last abuse that he went through happen to me as well. One for one. I have had people stealing credit for my work. I have had people trying to hush me and shut me up and pay me to go away. I have had people use work that wasn't licensed to be used. everything he detailed has happened to me at least once. And I'm like, this is something that creative people go through in the professional world. There are producers who will absolutely do everything they can to take as much blood from the stone as possible, regardless of what it does to people.
It's like the system is made more to keep those that are on top, rather than to do some good work and give proper credit where credit is due in order to keep the artists that make the product you make be what it is. Happy and willing to come back to you.
Shocking, right?
And it's not just the work on Nick. In the span between last episode and this episode, I've gotten through my recommendation and general cycle of people I follow 2 other hour-plus long pieces about similar situation.
Yeah.
Because there is the Defang Clan documentary on 4 Notes Mnemonic on the Disney Channel that somehow takes 2 hours of investigation in order to find who made it. Something that should have taken like a minute or 2. But credit, like one of the person interviewed said, when you work for Disney and you do something for Disney, you didn't make the thing, Disney did. You take your pay and you go back.
Yeah, everyone wonders why I hate Disney so much. I work in this industry. I see how evil they are, like, firsthand. Yeah,
exactly. That's very clear. And there's also, in the same span of time, the video H-Bomber guy did about a single Roblox sound effect that led all the way back to work on Messiah and Tony Hawk Pro Skaters, and generally how much Tony Tallarico is absolutely bonkers and the perfect incarnation of somebody in the management that sees something that takes success and go from this guy under my employee did it to we did it to I did it and everything around it myself.
Yeah, I have to admit, Tommy Tallarico has done some very good work for the video game music world. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. Video Games Live is largely his baby, which basically kickstarted the video game concert just experience that I'm a huge fan of in general. But Absolutely. If you know how to read credits, you could tell pretty quickly he is very He is very full of himself, and that is pretty readily apparent.
I highly recommend you watch that video because it's a ride.
I will check that out. Anyway, I don't want to go harping on Mick Gordon's travails. Lord knows that everyone and their kid sister has a opinion about this thing. And
besides, I don't think we could do a better job than he does at saying what was wrong with his situation. What we can do, as people that are independent from this situation, is to celebrate the good he brought to his industry and the work he's been doing for over 10 years, and that justified the reputation that was dirtied by the comments from his management and the lies he was subjected to.
Absolutely. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into our Mick Gordon special and show off why this guy is so awesome and deserves better than he got.
Or will we? Because we'll start with a track that isn't from Mick Gordon.
Yeah, I was surprised to see this one on here, and you said it was relevant, so I'm looking forward to hearing your point of this one.
Well, it's relevant because it's a nice bridge from what we were talking to about proper credit and his work, because he worked on the Wolfenstein New Order soundtrack, but finding the exact source was hard enough. And by the way, thank you again to VGMDB for being such a useful database that goes in such depths to give proper credit. Because only for Wolfenstein New Order, there's the featured music selection, there's the game soundtrack, There's the vinyl game soundtrack that covers this game and another one. And then there's the Youngblood Die Collection von Tregenza, which also has tracks from 2 different games, the second of which is not the same as the vinyl collection. And this is the one in which this track appears, the only one of that, because it has 8 of the 9 collectibles TDs you can find in the game. 8 out of 9.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, proper credit attribution is a pain. You can't reasonably expect a casual listener to go over who did what track most of the time. No. And as a result, you have this company's sound team did that soundtrack and leave it at that, and that's a shame. And even with having the proper credit attribution hidden and searched, music is a collaborative effort a lot of the time, especially in video games. Did he have an influence with the general plan this track is a part of making Germanized alternate reality version of popular songs? Was it in the design document and the briefing he received? Was it a Copilot and Ross Tregenza thing? The 2 of which have worked on this track, actually. Who knows?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes information that we just don't possess for a whole variety of reasons. It does make things challenging at times.
It does. But I also wanted to cover that track and the other in that series because it's such a cool concept. So Wolfenstein is alternate reality where the Nazi Germany won and then conquered the whole world, that sort of thing. And as a result, this influences not only the fact there are giant death robots everywhere, but also how culture developed. And this is reflected by CDs you find of a fictional music company that has classics that are Germanized versions of popular pop songs. This one being a reprise of House of the Rising Sun, but with different lyrics sung in German. And if the idea of taking a popular song and translating it in another language sounds a bit far-fetched to you, you are obviously not French, because Johnny Hallyday, popular French singer, happened to have in his long list of musical hits Les Portes du Pénitencier, which is a reprise in French of House of the Rising Sun. You don't even need the alternate reality to have that.
Hey, I've heard the English version of Du Hast, so, translating songs is not that unusual.
You guys are just asking me to go on a tirade about Brazilian music back in the 70s and 60s, where every single big artist in Brazil at the time basically had to just make a Portuguese translation completely clean, completely safe for work of American pop music.
Yeah, and that was extremely common here too in the 70s and 80s. That's what popular music labels did.
Yeah, the thing is, Brazil was under a military dictatorship, so that was literally the only music that was allowed for at least a decade. And now we have a dude who's called the king of Brazilian music. His name is Roberto Carlos. And his entire claim to fame is covering a bunch of American bubblegum pop songs in Portuguese.
Yeah.
We have our own version of the Polka Dot Bikini.
Oh my God, what?
That sounds extremely familiar. And I feel like you touch on a very important point with the dictatorship aspects reflected in this song, which is that it's such a cool move because when you listen to those songs and you compare them to the original, they all are, in the lyrics, in the instrumentations, a bit more spineless, a bit more mellow, in a way that really puts up on the forefront the kind of the daily life and realities of fascist regimes, the way they can send paper art, and it puts very much Nazi imagery on an artistic forefront without glorifying Nazi imagery and making it look cooler than the spineless thing it is.
Yeah, it's not
and
like...
that's cool.
Yeah, and just in general, it's not like that sort of thing allows for much of a counterculture. Like, let's be honest, Nazi punks fuck off is not going to be a song they're going to tolerate.
Yeah, Brazil even had to do a very roundabout way of making music that the dictatorship would allow, which is how Bossa Nova was born. And there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of video essays on YouTube about how Bossa Nova is actually counterculture to the military dictatorship of the time. So I will not waste your time just regurgitating those talking points.
Also, Nazi punks fuck off, part of the Wolfenstein The Old Blood OST.
I believe it. I didn't realize this, but I believe it, and I love that. I don't understand how, because that game should predate that song by like 40 years, but, you know, cool. I mean, then again, I say that, but they had, oh god, what was it in, they had the Stones in, I think it was in, the New Colossus.
Yeah. And one of the cover is from Not the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty for it's such a cool work and such a nice way to play with the genre, try interesting things, and in different genres rather than stay constrained to a specific type of tune that it got more known for these days.
On that subject, what the hell is this next song?
Well, that next song I discovered because I checked Mick Gordon's Wikipedia page and saw his first credit, which was informed due to a Wayback Machine version of his own internet site, and I'm not sure he worked on this exact track, but I didn't see any other credit for the OST of Hot Dog King, a small hot dog management game from a company I never heard of.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that it... I know you said... I mean, we've covered that crediting is hard, and we've covered that, like, it's hard to track some of the stuff down, but I'm really hoping that he didn't have anything to do with this one, because I hate this song. I hate this. And I'll tell you all why later, but please go on.
Well, my point here is related to the top commentary on this track, which is somebody joking. You can really see the inspiration for the Doom Eternal soundtrack in this one. And Hot Girls, the name of that track, is a stupid-sounding pop song. And the fact is that I agree unironically with that comment, because for a game that is literally from a studio I never heard of, that must have had a budget of like $3 on a Snickers bar, putting a pop song with lyrics somewhere in there is like 3 steps above of what would have been acceptable for this game.
I will give you that.
That's kinda what he does.
That's fair. You know what? Yeah, no, he definitely classes up most of the games he works on. Assuming this one is him, however, it is a very amateur effort. The beat is thin, the mixing is a mess. Like, the song just sounds bad. And he doesn't really do that. Like, he does layers on layers. He's a really just always been a very, very, like, just intricate guy. There's nothing intricate about this. This is about as on the nose as it gets.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's why he disavowed the soundtrack, because I don't believe it's on his website anymore.
Yeah,
that's
the
possible.
need for the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
So, to talk about some Mick Gordon tracks proper, let's move forward a few years and talk about some Need for Speed World. Because that is 100% Mick Gordon.
It sounds like 100% Mick Gordon, and it sounds totally different. I mean, it's... Okay, so I guess my biggest complaint is, this is supposed to be a free roam song, but it is really intense. I mean, if there's one thing we can say about Mick Gordon, he does intense really well, but it's kind of seeping into his stuff that probably shouldn't be. Like, I haven't played this game, so I don't really know, but just the idea of a free roam with this song playing feels a little more weighty than a free roam probably should.
I agree very much so, because I feel that this one is interesting mainly because it sounds kind of like the conclusion of previous experiments that helped crystallize the Mick Gordon sound. Even though he is very diverse, he does have a style that is very distinct.
He does. Usually it's very guitar heavy, and this one has like some really cool slick guitar lines. Not as guitar heavy as some, though it does go pretty hard at around the 220 point.
I actually have a bit of a different opinion on it working as a free roam thing, because it's a free roam for a racing game specifically, and the way it builds up, to me, I can see it working really well. Like, let's say you get a highway and you're just accelerating and going faster and faster and faster. I get it. Like,
okay.
In specifically a racing open world, I get it. I think it works well. For example, I've played in the past Forza Horizon 5, and I was always listening to the rock and metal tracks even when free roaming. So the speed, I think, kind of justifies it, let's say.
Yeah, I think what's key here on you raise a nice point is that it is a Need for Speed game, and it's like that track wouldn't work for a Gran Turismo game, because Gran Turismo, the lower end, is like a Mini or something. Here, the low end is already a race car on its own right.
Yeah, the lower end on Need for Speed games is like muscle cars, I think.
Yeah.
And muscle cars are the best for guitar-centric music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially since you have the roar of the engine that can be echoed by the low humming of the Simpson guitar.
Yep.
Cargo.
I context is definitely missing here, and we talked about the importance of context in the previous episode, with Pandora's Labyrinth of whatever. So yeah, I could just be missing something. I probably need to look up some kind of gameplay footage to really get a feel for it. This is probably not the sort of game I'd play, to be perfectly honest with you, but I do appreciate how it sounds in a vacuum. Like, this is a cool song. And I'm assuming context that isn't really there. Love the bass synth on this one. The bass synth is really good.
Now, I have some bad news.
Oh dear.
About context.
Oh dear.
Need for Speed World was an online game, published by Electronic Arts. It shut down in 2015.
Cool. Alright, well, great. Terrific.
And I cannot find it on Spotify either. So no way to listen to it on its own.
Yeah, I just not too long ago. This is going to seem like a bit of a tangent, but it's going to come back around to this. I watched a Spiffing Brit video on the final days of, it was like Total War Arena or something like that.
Yes, I saw that one too.
Yeah, and just it felt very different from his usual videos, because he was really talking about, he was showing off like the end of a loved game, and as
he
as
can
an extension
go at length about some things at times, but this time it felt so heartfelt.
It did, and he talked about the importance of archival work and the importance of preservation in video games, which I think is largely overlooked by these big corporations. This harkens back to the BBC burning their old tapes because they didn't want to do reruns.
Yeah.
And I find that, as a creative, to be incredibly insulting. Like, I remember, going back to our old show, Gathering of Gotchas, when Valkyrie Anatomia was shutting down, I was like, I want to find the source code. I want to actually have a version of this game in my life, and it really kind of... It sucks that this happens, and a game like this, with a soundtrack like this, and a vibe like this, being lost to the aether feels like a tragedy to me. Like, even if it's not something I never play.
To echo the words of Ross Cott from Accursed Farms, stop kidding games.
Yes.
Have an exit plan if you're going to be online only.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely scared of that in the Hitman trilogy.
Yeah.
As an Assassin's Creed fan, I'm scared of that for the Assassin's Creed franchise due to recent news. Like,
the more things are not on your computer, the harder things will be to play.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like most gaming studios just treat their franchises as toys. When there's a lot of art put into them.
There absolutely is, and yeah, it's I never played Need for Speed World. I never would play Need for Speed World, and yet I'm still sad it's gone. Yeah, and I never will now, and that itself is tragic.
To play it.
Yeah, I don't even have the option.
That I listen to the soundtrack, I want to play it now, but I can't.
Yeah.
And back when it was active, I just wasn't aware of the soundtrack, so I didn't.
You know, I've always had a dream of making my own game, right? And I've gotten close a couple of times. I've worked on a couple of indie titles. I've kind of poked my head at it. I've always wanted to develop a studio and really do it. And I've never been able to get that together in my life. And this is a sort of pitfall that I do find myself thinking about. I want something that people can keep forever. And the fact that EA and whatnot don't it pisses me off. It pisses me off how people treat creatives. It pisses me off how people treat artistic work, how they treat intellectual property. It's just so mercenary, and there's no love in it.
Now, there are some good news, however.
I like good news.
Soapbox Wasteworld is something that is completely unrelated to Need for Speed World officially. It just happens to oddly resemble, say, if a few passionate people got together and managed to retro-engineer the game and posted it privately in order to make it live again.
Does that include the music? And I know I'm almost breaking the law by even asking that, but I kind of have to.
I don't know. All the site article I'm reading that talks about that says the multiplayer and private matches with friends work 100%.
Good for them. Sometimes it just takes the community to make things live again.
Yeah, Galen, when you edit this episode, just remember to add the word allegedly after every single word that Rana just said.
I don't see what you mean. Soapbox Wasteworld is a completely unrelated game.
Yeah, totally different game.
I mean, it doesn't even have Need for Speed in the title. How could it ever infringe EA's intellectual property?
Exactly. We better move on to this subject before we get sued.
You know what game is still playable? Killer Instinct.
I have been sleeping on this soundtrack, and the more I listen to these songs, the more I regret doing so.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go that hard to revive an old arcade and home consoles fighting game.
You know, I mentioned this.
They did, and boy, am I glad.
Yeah. I forget which episode it was, but we brought up Cinder's theme once upon a time, and I mentioned that I did play the original Super Nintendo version of Killer Instinct, and I have a story about that, in fact. So when I moved, I actually found my old Super Nintendo.
Oh, what? Sweet.
And it has a sticker on it from, hey, guess what? Killer Instinct.
Yeah.
I actually found it in a box that must have been in my guest bedroom closet back in the old place.
It's not just the two of us telling you, Galen. It's the universe.
I think I do need to start thinking about getting into fighting games again. I'm just so bad at them, and I do not want to play online. That's like the big thing.
So yeah. I don't do that either, but the soundtrack is on Spotify.
I wish I had reason to more forcefully drag you towards Soul Calibur, but it is one of the games with the worst online code these days.
Oh, no. Especially, like, I'm living not on the US mainland anymore. My ping is a disaster area.
Our time zones are literally 12 hours apart.
Yeah.
Which is very convenient to know when it is for you.
Actually, I think it's 11 hours right now, or maybe 13. I think it's 11
because of daylight savings.
I don't have that, you do, and that makes things even more complicated. It's great.
Exactly.
I'm dealing with that with the mainland of my friends and family in New York and California, and it's just like, yikes.
I'll just point out that I'm a Brazilian dude who usually plays games on American servers, so, you know, I'm familiar with Galen Spain right now.
But, yeah, I might try the arcade mode of this game at some point and try the me versus CPU version of this game, because
it's actually pretty well fulfilled. It's essentially a roguelite campaign.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's on the Game Pass, in case you're interested, because it is a Microsoft title after all.
It is, and even if it isn't, it is, by the way, there is 3 versions with like 4 playable characters, but you can take online and everything else.
Great. Man, these songs are great. Like, we have 4 songs between the two of you in here, and all of them are awesome in completely different ways.
I am particularly fond of how, for every single one of these 4 tracks, Mick Gordon, he does his homework when grabbing stuff from these different cultures. Because we have like a character who's a werewolf, which is usually associated with Victorian England. It's a sort of a Victorian myth, let's say. It's older than that, but that's when it kind of got big, Gothic literature. We have a song that's the theme to a golem who appears to be Greek. There's a lot of Greek chanting in the song. We have a song that appears to be for a character inspired by Japanese. So we have also a song that seems to be for a character that is inspired by Japanese horror movie villains, like the villain from the movie The Ring.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like Sadako?
Yeah.
I don't remember her name.
Sadako, I think.
Sure.
And then we have another song that seems to be for what I can only assume might be a Maya warrior or something. And each of them...
She's got a Kopesh, and she's doing the Wakanda Forever salute, so, like, I'm pretty sure it's African.
She is African, but she's named Maya.
Nice.
So, both, I guess. But yeah, with the exception of Lycanthropy, which is entirely instrumental, and we've brought it up in the past already, the other songs all have lyrics in a language that I assume is always meant to represent the character. I just don't know about Maya, because I cannot recognize the language being sung there. But the song Polemos is in Greek, and the song Village of Whispers is in Japanese.
Yeah, and to talk briefly about another song's comment. So yeah, under the comments for Hinamatum, the theme for Thunder, you can see a lot of people saying I'm from this tribe, or I'm native, and I generally start cringing the moment I see a character or a song that attempts to sound like a Native American, but this gets it.
I will.
The man does his homework. I can't believe it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing listening to all 4 of these songs. Like with Lycanthropy, you get the vibe. It's got the European feel to it in a way that makes a lot of sense while still having that intensity.
And it's unhinged. It's creaking and breaking at the seam.
Polemos is obviously a lot more I don't want to say restrained, but it definitely feels more like a crazy war march than it does a like unhinged
it's dignified,
song. It is. It's also amazing.
I want to just shout out a fun fact here. I may have mentioned it in the podcast in the past. I can't remember. My memory sucks. But I have a playlist that I made back during my customer support days that I call "In Case of Emergency, Click the Playlist," which I like to refer to it as the playlist that I play when I want to punch a customer but I know I can't. And Polemos was in there just because it sounds like a war march.
It does. God, I just need to talk about this for a second. There's just the keys in general have been great. There's this just insane guitar riff going on from the word go. There's this bridge breakdown with the solo at like the 220 mark that's great. And then I write this. This might be one of my favorite songs that I've ever discovered on the show, and like, how did I miss this one?
Wow.
This one had me jamming in my chair in a way that not many songs get me going on. So I, at the very least, definitely need to check out the soundtrack again.
Also, shout out to a big part of the song, basically redoing the classic Clear Instinct title theme, but with Greek instruments.
Oh yeah,
that's
there's
pretty cool.
A version of the title theme adapted to each and every one of the songs Mick Gordon composed. It's in every single of the 19 tracks he made for this game.
It's a shame he didn't get back for Season 3.
Yeah. But two main things I want to cover. One, you mentioned it sounded like a war march. Do you know what Polemos means in Greek?
I do not.
I know because
I was going to say, I know because I read the comments.
Well, I know because I took 4.5 years of ancient Greek. And the other thing is in the description of the video provided by Mick himself. Again, we were talking about proper crediting, and while it's not thorough, there's a reason for that. It's that the choir is composed of, and I quote, the entire Iron Galaxy team, many fabulous people from Microsoft, Panos Kolias, the lyricist, and his family, plus several other wonderful people combined to make a crowdsourced choir of 461 individual recordings.
That's a lot. Like, that is a level of work that I don't know many composers would put into anything. Like, that's a lot. Certainly not like a major tempo release.
We are talking about the guy who made an entire heavy metal choir for Doom Eternal, so...
Yeah, and who made a pop song with lyrics for Hot God King.
Oh god.
All joking aside, he really strikes me as somebody that sits down at his battle station, looks at many scream with 1,000 individual tracks to mix together, rubs his hand together in glee and go, oh yeah, here we go. Like, I feel the monumentality of the project motivates him.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's appropriate that there is monumentality in a track featuring a giant statue.
It makes sense.
Punches you in the face and pins you against a wall.
And then moving on to Village of Whispers, I wrote that it was adjacent to Lycanthropy, which I think is not incorrect. Got a really cool bass line. I like this vocalist, Erica Mariko Olsen. So, judging by the last name, clearly married into someone Western.
Yeah.
Or born into, or something like that. But we're dealing with the native Japanese speaker who doesn't necessarily live in Japan. There's this, like, gentish guitar breakdown at 2:14, this really cool synth line. There's this really creepy lullaby section. Like, it really just clicks.
Right.
Yeah. This is a song that really just clicks. And it's totally different than the other two songs. Like, completely. It's, like, not even close.
Yeah, and that's a point that I think bears repeating, because if nothing else comes from the situation with the Doom Eternal soundtrack and his mistreatment and so on, I hope it leads to him taking projects that will really allow him to make character songs, because he's very good at reflecting subtle elements of characterization in his song.
Well,
that is action horror at its finest, with a spookiness and also an ambience, and also well-defined, and also fighting, and with a hint of worship, and there's the repeated lyrics that reflect the yokai nature of the character, and it's all so good.
It is so good. I'm going to be honest, and this is going to be a harsh truth. To be perfectly honest, his career in major tentpole work is probably over. Like, even by releasing that letter, no matter how in the right he is, and he certainly is, every other producer out there is going to be like, this guy's airing dirty laundry. We don't want to work with him.
Yeah. And if he didn't do it, it would have been, this guy is hard to work with and a bit of a diva.
Yeah, exactly. So he's unfortunately, like, it's not, it shouldn't be, because that's not how the real world should work. But yeah, unfortunately, it seems like we're not likely, like, someone was going to have to go out of their way to hire him specifically to make a point at this point, is what's going to happen.
Yes.
I hope someone does, but
I hope he gets a revival that is going to be twice as bright, because even without the situation, it's a bit I wrote for a further song, but I'm going to say it now. I don't want Mick to be the Doomguy.
Yeah.
There's already a Doomguy. He's the Doomguy.
Right?
Mick is more than Doom.
Yeah.
And his work on Killer Instinct is a prime example of that.
Oh, yeah. He goes in so many different directions. Like, let's go ahead and talk about the next one, Temperance and Vengeance. This one's just straight EDM. It's just, EDM with African chanting. You called it, you said it had like this whole Afrofuturism thing going on, and that is really cool.
Yeah, and it's even better when you listen to the original version of Maya's theme from Killer Instinct 2, which has the same through line, but they went at the time, well, it's an African character, so we're going to put animal sounds and monkey howling, and it's going to be great. And then he takes what hasn't aged poorly
at all,
and does the same things he did with Orchid's theme, which went from the original that was like touchy feel me to the name of the song, Touch Me and I'll Break Your Face.
There we go.
It takes into account that the original was a product of its time and moves forward while not just completely forgetting that it existed. The through line, again, the main melody is the same, but it's treated in like 17 different ways throughout this track that goes with this very energetic thing. I want to make fitness exercises to this song.
I understand.
And I never want to do fitness.
I understand. I wouldn't say that I'm getting into fitness, but I'm walking like everywhere now. And yeah, I get it. Like, if I wanted to take it to that next level, this would in fact be a way to go here.
It's very rhythmical like that.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say something that I say a lot on this podcast, and about 99% of the time when I say it, it's because of Rana, and this is another time where it's because of Rana. And what I want to say is, this song is in a style that usually isn't my thing, but I dig this one. This one
Thank you
is
for the
cool.
compliment. Yeah. Like, it's so energetic without being naive.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so glad that
again,
seasons 1 and 2 of
homage
Killer
from
Instinct.
the original and moves forward.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that seasons 1 and 2 of Killer Instinct are on Spotify, because that means I can add this one to my workout playlist.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to find a CD of it because Spotify pays its people trash, but
Indeed.
it's one of those things that, yeah, he deserves royalties from this.
Yeah. It's such a cool soundtrack and so diverse.
It really is.
We've covered also a full rap theme for TJ Combo in a previous episode.
Oh,
There's the track for the Skeleton Pirate that has xylophone sounds to evoke the skeletal ribs, along with a pace that suits the kind of the naval roaring songs. It's such a bubbling crux of creativity. It's good music. It's good video game music. It's Mick Gordon.
If anything, the amount of variety just makes it weird that the one time we had a Tekken song with yodeling, it was from Tekken and not Killer Instinct, because that's something Mick Gordon would do, I think.
He did work on, I believe, additional sound design for Tekken Dark Resurrection.
Well, there you have it.
All right.
And, alright, the most important and most interesting part about all of these songs is that you cannot listen to them as is in-game.
Yeah, that's got a lot of like variable mixing stuff going on, if I'm not mistaken. It has to do with like
That has
combos
a
and what round
lot
it
of
is.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It basically changes completely at every single combo or reversal, or the status of your health relative to the health of your opponent. And you fight somebody 5 times in a row on the same stage, you don't hear the same song 5 times in a row. You don't hear the same song 2 times in a row, in fact. That goes to the point where when you do the Ultra combo, which is basically a finisher that's like 60 hits, at which point the enemy is already dead. Each hit is a musical sound, which means that not only do you have to adjust the combo so that it matches the stage's music for everyone, but like there's so many variations of that, and you can interrupt mid-combo to do something more freeform and essentially add your own end to the music track by punching the other guy. It's just incredibly ambitious, and yeah, I love it. I think it's his best work.
I'm inclined to agree from everything I heard, because out of all the things we put in here, absolutely none of it affected me emotionally or mentally as much as this one. Like, all of my notes on every other track are so much shorter, but these ones I was like, I must talk about this.
Yeah, and I think what's important is that we didn't hear them in game, but at least for Polemos and Village of Whispers in particular, these were the versions that are on Mick Gordon's very own YouTube channel, because he did the mixes he wants people to listen to for the soundtrack, because of how variable it is. Hey, guess what other game has a heavy variable soundtrack he wanted to work on properly to do a proper soundtrack instead of a rush job handled by somebody else behind his back? Doom Eternal!
Yeah. Which we are not actually talking about today. I'm looking over this, and we don't actually have any Doom Eternal on here, I don't think.
Yeah, I didn't play it.
And the official soundtrack uses mixes that aren't by Mick Gordon.
No,
so,
they're by some other poor schmuckoid who clearly didn't know what he was doing. He's named in the
short end of the stick.
Yeah, this person is named in Mick's open letter, and I just don't have that available right now, but
yeah.
Yeah, I believe his name is Chad Mossholder.
That sounds
correctly.
Close.
He's id Software's in-house audio guy, I guess.
Yeah, but
sound guy.
Speaking as someone who is a sound guy and doesn't really do music, I kind of feel sorry for him, because I kind of feel like this got dumped in his lap, and he's probably not equipped for it.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
The vibe I get
That's
as
not
well.
a problem with him. That's a problem with management.
There's a lot of those in that open letter. But yeah, if he's like a sound effects guy, sound designer, sound director, he may not be equipped for mixing that sort of music. I know I would struggle with that.
Yeah.
And I'm good at my job.
Not everybody sees 500 different individual tracks and go, yeah, I can handle it.
Right? Especially not on a rush timeline under the kind of leadership that everyone seems to have been under for the purpose for the duration of that project. So
yeah,
like,
I believe it's worth just saying out loud exactly a statement about this, which is we stand with Mick Gordon, but we also think Chad got the short end of the stick as well.
Yeah.
Please do not harass Chad Mossholder.
Do not harass anyone.
No,
in fact.
don't harass anybody.
Anyone.
If anybody listening to this podcast is a fan of like going online and issuing death threats, please stop listening to us. I don't want you around.
Please don't. Yeah. Or
Exactly.
F off.
Yeah, exactly. Please don't. Just don't. I shouldn't have to say this. The fact that I do have to say this is terrifying.
Indeed. But better leave it said.
Yeah.
On the record.
Correct. Not interested in that sort of behavior in any shape, form, or fashion. Don't do it.
Now then, let's talk about Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Let's talk about that one. So, I gotta be honest, I barely remember this soundtrack. Just sort of in general. I didn't even know he was involved with it until years after the fact.
I only know he was involved in it because of Total Biscuit at the time, who basically went and aired a lot of his music and his track at the beginning of his podcast, which is how I first discovered Mick Gordon's song by listening to Cinder's theme from Killer Instinct, which was aired at the beginning of an episode of the Corruptional podcast as waiting music, you know?
Love that.
And yeah, so I'm not going to go, I knew Mick before he was the Doomguy, but yeah, he was the Killer Instinct guy and then the Wolfenstein New Order guy, and somewhere along the way, Mick became Mick.
Hipster.
No, I also say that because at this time he was still credited as Michael John Gordon. Anyway, for this track's note, I wrote, just how deep do you go, my man?
Yeah, it's got a really hard guitar line. It sounds really desperate and hollow. I included this one not for any real musical merit, though there are certainly musical merits to be included, but the fact that this game itself is so important to me. Especially as a Jewish man. Like, this game was an emotional roller coaster and has some of the best storytelling of any first-person shooter I've ever played. And for all the praise for Halo's story, I've always found it to be fairly disjointed. It's got some interesting things going on, but it never felt like it was really enough connective tissue. Wolfenstein does not have that problem. The New Order really kind of... all three of those games, all four, I guess, I haven't played Youngblood yet. All three of those games really just goes at it and does it very well.
Yeah. And that track reflects it nicely, I think, because those sounds are the sounds of a war machine, not an individual robot. I mean the war machine that is all around the people. And the fact that the thrumming in the background is low, even during the quieter part, is just sending a message. It's translating one of the things I think the game wants to say, which is that you can't pretend to be neutral. You can't pretend the war machine isn't around you, even during the quieter times.
Mm-hmm. I've mentioned in the past episode that I felt the Doom soundtrack was energetic but oppressive, and that kind of made me not really... it didn't motivate me into the fast-paced combat style that Doom 2016 was built for, despite enjoying the soundtrack. This is not energetic. This is just oppressive, because that is what this game calls for.
Yeah, and I think it works very well.
Yeah, and I listen to a lot of music like this too, to be honest. Doom metal is one of my top listen genres, and this is a very angry doom metal track. And while it's not like I wouldn't say it's a blowout special piece of doom metal music. It's still pretty good. It does instill the emotion that you're supposed to have here, and in a way that I think it would be really hard to get without going to metal, without going to doom metal. Doom metal has that name for a reason. It's meant to sound like everything's doomed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like, this is a game whose premise is the bad guys won 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And this song definitely gives that vibe. Like usual, masterwork of guitar. He is fantastic with the guitar. He's got a lot of styles.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think there's a natural transition to the next track, because we see his guitar working. Again, a track that's on his own YouTube channel.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, I'm not feeling this song. Rip and Tear is not for me. I know that seems like a real weird take, considering I'm a total metalhead, but it's like it's all aggression. There's no real melodic thoroughfare, which even that terrible Hot Dog song had. Like, it's just the riffs, and that's all that's going on, and that's never been a style of metal that's appealed to me.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of that track that are not meant to be the track itself, but kind of ingredients to be used in the game while you are shooting and punching and chainsawing demons in the face. But you do have to make a soundtrack with that bucket of parts, and I really like the result myself. It goes hard, and then it kind of continues on its merry journey, going hard, and I kind of needed to put a Doom 2016 track because it's a game that I feel it's the game that still puts his name in the common parlance.
Yeah.
And it's the song that put his name in common parlance, because it's Rip and Tear.
It's either that or BFG Division.
Exactly.
I think it's BFG Division. I remember that song a lot stronger, personally at least, than I do this one.
Yeah, for my part, when it comes to Rip and Tear, I enjoy it, but in the sense that it's a good thing to be in the background to something else. Either in the background to destroying a lot of demons, or in the background to customer support work. It is pretty much what I meant, though, when I said in the previous episode that the Doom soundtrack was energetic but oppressive. It does lack a bit of a melody line. I remember at the time
you could also title it a POV. You are in the inside of a running chainsaw.
Pretty much. Yeah, I remember at the time I brought it up as a comparison to the game RoboQuest, where it does have a melody. The songs are energetic, and there's a melody in them that makes me move forward. I can see why this song would also make other people move forward, why it would make other people play more aggressive in the game. It doesn't quite do that for me, though. But at the same time, I see its importance when it comes to Doom being rebooted in 2016.
Yeah, especially since at this time they still had to kind of explain that they wanted a game where forward momentum was very important to the gameplay, where you didn't want to heal by hiding behind a chest-high wall, but by taking out your chainsaw and popping a piñata that happened to wanted to shoot at you minutes before.
Yeah,
and this is a game that originally the designers said they didn't want any metal in it. So
exactly,
I think in this soundtrack as a whole, but this song also, kind of needed to exist. Even if the three of us aren't the biggest fans of it, it was a statement.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily like it.
Right for its game.
Yeah, while I don't understand it, while I don't necessarily like it personally, I'm certainly not going to deny its importance given the circumstances.
Yeah. And the entire soundtrack is just a monument to how much fun one can have with the soundtrack, with all the little details like the fact he hid satanic imagery in the musical waveforms, or hid a backward message to appeal to the satanic panics of the mid-90s. It's just, again, taking, like we said with Temperance and Vengeance, taking elements from the past and finding a way to honor them while making something greater out of them. So yeah, it's got widespread and got him on the radar even more than before for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Which led us to him then being put on Arcane's work, which gives us Prey, and that is a much more diverse and wilder soundtrack.
Yeah, I'm very happy it was here as a kind of a breather between that and what comes next, because it shows that even post-Doom, he has the chops to make things that are calmer but still very much have his mark.
Yeah.
Both in the sounds and also in what they're trying to do. Part of his wiki said that he sees music not as an accompaniment of gameplay, but as a layer of translation. And I think that's really what I wanted to underline by picking the experiment as the Prey track, because of what's happening inside of Prey. One of the first enemies you encounter are mimics, which take the form of mundane objects and kind of move in the periphery of your vision, waiting to ambush you. Which is why this track has this surface layer that is shows in a space station and kind of dark, but what matters to me isn't the central melody and the droning sound and the slight wailing even. It's what happens in the periphery, the little sounds that appear and disappear just as quickly, so that you're not even sure on the first listen they were actually there, or if it was somebody that happened in your own environment. It's a great song to be justifiably paranoid to. Which is what this game is about.
It really is. I've only seen a speedrun of it. I haven't actually played the game myself, though I kind of feel like I should. I believe it's by the same team that did Dishonored, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely need to like consider this one down the road.
I don't like horror games, and Prey is a game I enjoyed almost as much as my favorite Western game of all times, which is System Shock 2. And that is high praise given the proximity of the two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I discussed with Eddie about Alan Wake, you could still be horror adjacent without being like Scarathon and still come up with something good. So, like, I'm glad there's enough developers doing that.
And if you want to take it a notch below, there's the roguelite mode, which they reveal with a trailer with You Spin Me Right Round Like a Record as its main theme.
Okay.
Why?
Which makes sense in context.
Alright. Man.
Yeah, no, Prey's great.
That's not a song I thought I'd have to discuss today, but here we are.
I shouldn't be surprised because I played Dishonored where they did a haunting version of Drunken Sailor, but somehow I am. As for the next Prey track that we have on our table here, it's according to the credits, it appears to be the second track on the album. It's called "Everything Is Going to Be Okay," and it's basically synthwave / retrowave. It's very chill.
Yeah, I actually put it in the chill wave. Like, I am actually like, Mick doing chill wave. Love it. That's actually my first lines of notes.
Yeah, and if it's the second track really in the album, usually that means it's the first stage or like the prologue background track. I haven't played Prey either, so I'm just spitballing here. But if my assumption is correct, this plays during a part that I have been spoiled about, which it's a minor spoiler. It's in the early game, so don't worry too much about it if you're new to Prey as well. But what this song does to the player is the same thing the narrative is doing to the player at the time, which is it's lying to your face. Everything's going to be okay. No. Everything is not going to be okay. Nothing's going to be okay.
Nothing's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's a chill wave song. The game is horror adjacent. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's similar to what the game is doing, because the game is giving you this high-end office, this flat that looks really fancy and clean and beautiful, and then you smash a window and you learn that it's all a simulation. Like, the world you are being presented here is a lie, and the soundtrack is colluding with that lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And even then, even when making a song for a lie, Mick Gordon makes a really good song.
Yeah.
Yeah, this song is just... Like, again, I didn't know necessarily the context because I haven't played the game. And just listening to it feels good.
Yeah, it's very much a feel-good song. I think it escalates at the point where you are on your helicopter ride to get to the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice way to have a little bit of a panorama view to this cool place that is a total fabrication.
It is just... I kind of pulled myself back from Prey because of my anxiety issues, and I know the game has a lot of scares from the mimics. But like
I said, the previous song was a great song to be paranoid to.
Exactly. That my anxiety might hate this game, but I might end up trying it anyway. But like this, the concept behind the intro to this game is so brilliant to me. This whole lie being built around you, and like there's a lot of videos. If you look up on YouTube, there's a lot of videos of people noting the little details and Easter eggs that already hint at it being a lie from the very start. You just don't realize it because you think, oh, those are just NPCs. They just didn't give enough attention to the NPCs. But they did, and it was deliberate to imply that it was a lie without you realizing it. It's so brilliantly executed from what I've seen, and the song goes perfectly with it.
Yeah. I don't have that context myself, but even again, I'm able to thoroughly enjoy this piece even without the context. This is probably the only one of the songs I enjoyed as much as his Killer Instinct work. You know, everyone talks about him in the vein of Doom, but the truth is, I'm starting to be increasingly convinced that Killer Instinct is his magnum opus.
That's what I think.
There are reasons I am still angry that they replaced Mick Gordon for Cell Dweller in Season 3 of Killer Instinct.
Even though it did a solid job, but it's not the same. I mean, I could compare the themes for Hisako and Shin Hisako, which are very much in the same wheelhouse, but one of them has less bite, but the point isn't to pin one composer against the other. He had other work to do, and the other work he did happened to be Wolfenstein, so we can't really blame the guy for moving to other cool projects like that one.
Yeah.
He happened to be busy after helping revive an ages-old franchise. He went to reviving an ages-old franchise before reviving an ages-old franchise. Killer Instinct, Wolfenstein, and Doom in that order. The dude has some street cred, is what I'm saying.
And what I'm saying is, put Mick Gordon on the next F-Zero soundtrack.
Oh god, that would be amazing. What? Hang on.
Yeah.
If not for a fact that I'm increasingly convinced Nintendo is pure evil, like, that would be amazing.
Yes. And he did racing game tracks before.
True. We just talked about Need for Speed. Okay, so there's no easy transition to this because I've never even heard of this game before I started doing research for this episode. But there's a game called Lawbreakers that he did 2 songs for. I don't know anything about this. I discovered this on his VGMDB, and I'm just like, let's discover this.
Oh no, Lawbreakers was conceptually interesting. It was a game that was a shooter with a team shooter mainly, with a lot of play around anti-gravity zones. And it was pretty fun. The problem was that it started at full price in a market that was very much saturated by Overwatch and Friends. It came at the wrong time and didn't manage to make the cut.
That makes sense. I will say this song is like very Rammstein, like very, very Sehnsucht-era Rammstein. Like, I was really expecting Till Lindemann to start singing at some point in this song. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, and it suits nicely the feel the game has, that basically has its characters say, yeah, we're cool badasses. We shoot big guns.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to note that when I was listening to this, I went, okay, this is cool. The guitar sounds a bit familiar. I can enjoy this. Then Galen dropped that comment on Discord that it sounds like Rammstein. I was like, okay, I cannot unhear it. The guitar is 100% Du Hast.
Yeah, no, it really is. And then you have that like keyboard outro that's like also 100% like, that's so inspired by Rammstein, it hurts.
Oh right, that's the game where you had a button dedicated to shooting directly behind you because you could use the recoil of the gun to propulse yourself in anti-gravity zones.
Well, that's a pretty cool feature. I kind of dig that.
Yeah.
That sounds like something Rammstein would add into a music video.
A little bit. You know, I heard their new song, Adieu. It's boring. I'm not a big fan.
I think the single is actually just a remix of the last song from the latest album, Zeit. And I am kind of meh on that album personally. A bit too mellow for Rammstein. Doesn't play to their strengths.
I got that off of Adieu. It just did not feel like it didn't feel energetic like they're good at. Like even something like Sauna. I do not pronounce German well. Really worked well, whereas this one kind of doesn't.
Yeah, they can do melancholy well. This just kind of fell flat. But anyway, that's Rammstein. This is kind of also Rammstein, but we're talking about Mick Gordon, so
yeah.
But it's a very, very fun track. Those guitars just instantly fill me with nostalgia for the aforementioned reasons, and the synths work really well together. It's a cool industrial metal track, clearly inspired by the Neue Deutsche Harte movement. And I apologize to any German listeners.
Fair enough.
Okay, I was going to transition to the end by mentioning his announced upcoming project, and I went on a rabbit hole the last 2 minutes.
Oh God.
That is very relevant to you, Eddie.
Oh,
because
God.
The release date hasn't been announced, but he's going to work as the audio director on Routine, which is a sci-fi horror first-person game on a space station with some retro-futurist aesthetics.
Wonder where
that's going to be pretty cool.
I wonder where I've heard that before.
Well, what's interesting here is the developer, Lunar Software, which also did some titles, most recently Dawnkeeper, and I kept moving down and I saw the Kingdom series, like Kingdom 2 Crowns, with a new expansion / declination that has been announced apparently, and it's the first time I see it. Kingdom 80s.
Yeah, I actually know about that game. I saw the announcement, and with my apologies to future Galen, who's gonna have to censor a little bit of this podcast, but what the f***?
You have your king on a bike, popping wheelies.
No, yeah, my what the f*** moment for that has already passed, because I saw the announcement when it originally came out. When the announcement originally came out, it's more, how the f*** is that studio the same that's doing this sci-fi horror thing with Mick Gordon?
I hate to say it, but studios could do a bunch of different things at once. Just because a dev team is one way doesn't mean the entire studio is.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, they're also the ones that made Gunner, that kind of Metroidvania with this crazy art style. Point being, it's a lot of weird games, so it'll fit right in.
Boy. Yeah, it does. I also did check out a little bit of what he has, what Mick Gordon has coming up. It does worry me a bit that a game slated for a 2023 release called Atomic Heart seems to have had like all of the development issues. So that's a bit of a worrying sign. Hopefully, Routine will be a bit better in that regard, and hopefully it will keep Mick Gordon's name up, and other studios that aren't id Software will hire him for more projects because he deserves it.
He does.
That's the hope. And we deserve some good Mick Gordon tracks in our ears.
We do.
We've been good.
And he didn't deserve to have what happened to him,
lot.
and he doesn't deserve what's going to happen to him as a result of these actions. He is an incredibly talented individual who clearly has a lot of respect for the art and a lot of respect for any project he's on.
And a lot of ambition.
Yeah.
I think that's the trait that strikes to me, not in a bad way, like I want to be super known or anything. It's like I want to make this track mean something and etch itself in some people's mind.
And we deserve that. We deserve that completely and utterly. And I 100% stand by that. I think that I was very hyped to do this episode on a personal level because, just to peel behind the curtain a little bit, we had another intro text for this which focused more on the problems that he's been going through. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to celebrate the guy because he deserves it, because he's worth it, because look at what he's capable of doing. And I want to hear more of that. And I want people to recognize why he's great. And I think that's more important than commiserating his oft-discussed problems.
And if we've helped even one person know a bit more why we're so excited about the guy, mission accomplished.
Agreed. Fully. Completely agreed.
I hope that as we end the talks about Mick Gordon, we've inspired people to check at least one new album featuring songs from him.
Or a game. Start playing New Order, play Doom, play Prey, play Killer Instinct. I'll fight you online at Killer Instinct. I have a terrible TJ combo, but I'm going to get it out anyway.
Oh, well, that challenge is out there in the air, viewers.
simple.
You better take him up on it, or I'm going to be disappointed in you.
Yeah.
What I'm fearing now is that eventually we'll get a Music Arcade FFA between the three of us, and it's going to have to be on Killer Instinct because that's the best soundtrack in gaming. In at least
it's
fighting
accessible
gaming.
because, again, it's free in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
What fills me with fear is that I suck at it the most out of every fighting game.
Well, you can start your training arc right now.
Oh god. Eye of the Tiger wasn't made by Mick Gordon for the training
No,
montage.
it wasn't.
I'm sure he's got
Besides,
plenty
I
of songs
believe
that'd be
we've all-
good for a training montage.
Besides, admittedly, we've all been busy with different video games, haven't we?
May as well talk about them. Music Arcade, now playing.
Move us better, my transition, very proud of.
That's about as good as we're going to get, I think, given the hyper-focused nature of this episode. I have not been playing anything new. I've been playing more Arknights and more Tactics Ogre, so we're going to be talking about the same games I talked about last week. Last time I didn't get a chance to actually post a song until we were mid-recording of the episode. This time I did. The Final Boss 2, Stultifera Novice, which has two different titles. I'm not going to bother with them. This song is silly and weird and stupid, and I hate it, and I also absolutely love it.
My notes are, you put some sea shanty in my bus music. No, you put some bus music in my sea shanty.
That's essentially what happened here. It actually makes a lot of sense in context, but I can't defend this song at all. I adore it, but I can't defend it at all.
It exists.
It exists. It is weird as hell. It is earwormy.
Is it any surprise that I liked it a lot?
Not in the least. This is right up your alley for sure.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest here. I liked it too, but maybe I'm biased because I love sea shanties. But even the sea shanties, the sea shanty aspect here is kind of buried in 2,000 layers of orchestration.
I don't think it's buried at all. It's the primary hook.
And yet it's sung by a
Okay.
professional choir, apparently.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Again, it's Arknights. They go ham on the music.
Wow, it turns out some people don't grab out 600 random employees to make the choir.
Yeah, I know, right? What kind of losers are they? Oh, God, I couldn't even say that with a straight face.
Oh boy.
But no, this song is god-awful, but I love it. I don't like sea shanties, and I'm like, this song is perfect. I hate it. It's perfect.
It's living in a corner of your head now. Might as well make peace with it.
Might as well make peace with it.
Meanwhile, I'm just like, I love sea shanties. Sea shanties don't belong with this kind of orchestration and choir. I love this.
Right? Yeah, that about sums it up. Even the lyrics, simple as they are actually, like, contextually appropriate.
Cool. Love it for that.
Yeah, so this is one of these, like, very on-point tracks that Arknights has done, which is a big difference compared to Chapter 10, I believe it was, that I did a couple episodes ago, talked about Ben, which I thought was on the weaker side. So, they were saving it for this, apparently.
Sweet.
Other game I've been playing, hey, look, more Tactics Ogre. I am in Palace of the Dead right now, and it's a nightmare. But what isn't a nightmare is, oh my god, the remixes are good. So last time I mentioned that I was saving two of my favorite songs, Theme of Dark Night and The Interminable Revolt, as I was saving them for, when I actually heard them in context. I heard Dark Knight a lot sooner than I thought I would. It showed up in a boss fight that it really shouldn't have. I'm like, why is Dark Knight playing on this boss fight? This doesn't make any sense. Meanwhile...
Is he dark and or a knight?
No, the guy you're fighting is a good guy ranger.
Well, that's just inappropriate down the line.
Agreed.
What the heck?
Yeah, no, I was like, wait, this guy is like one of the heroes of the game. He's going to join me in about 3 battles. Why is this song playing?
You had one job.
Right? It's not like there's any shortage of complete and utter bangers for this song, for this boss fight here. Why did this happen? I'm so confused. And now I don't know if this is like from the Super Nintendo version or even from the PSP version. I don't know what happened here. I'm just baffled by this. The other one was Revolt, like one of my all-time favorite game tracks ever. And that one I heard originally, I mean, like, it is kind of a field theme, and I heard it originally a kind of a unique one, but it actually also showed up in a boss fight against a Dark Knight.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had one job twice.
Right? Like, if they actually swapped these 2 songs, it would make a lot more sense. But for some reason, you're fighting Vice and you get Dark Knight, but you're fighting Barboss, probably the closest thing this game has to a big bad, and you're getting this song. And I'm like, sure.
Right.
Okay, that tracks at least.
Yeah. Man, this orchestrated version is incredible of Revolt. This orchestrated version is incredible.
I've heard nothing but good things about the tracks they took, and
well, what I did discover, and I have no examples of it. If you actually go through the in-game jukebox, there's little commentaries there. Apparently, there's actually new music in here composed by Sakimoto.
Oh, great.
So
we love when the responsibles for the music we enjoy are able to be properly credited and express themselves a little as a treat.
Yes, this is accurate. This is an accurate statement. Oh God. Anyway, that leaves us with whoever's next. Next. I'm done. I've said my piece.
Yeah. Now it's my turn. I have a bit of a list that I would just quickly list off and give my opinion, because we have a big one where I kind of want to go on a tirade because it's too funny when you start digging into it. But let's go through the short list first. I've played Pentiment, the new game by Obsidian.
How is it?
The story is great. The gameplay is a bit bare bones. Makes me wish there was a fast travel system because you walk a lot, and I have installed an HDD instead of an SSD, so there's a lot of loading. The soundtrack is pretty much non-existent. Like, there's some pieces here and there which mimic medieval sounds, but the actual gameplay is most of the time just the sound, ambient sounds. Sometimes you get a diegetic. Yeah, sometimes you get a diegetic thing, like you can visit the abbey and there will be a single monk practicing his Gregorian chant. Sorry, I can speak. You will get stuff like that, but in general, it's just ambient sounds in the actual gameplay. Another game I've been playing, actually started playing it last night as of the time of this recording, is Cyberpunk 2077. So far, I enjoy the soundtrack, but I haven't played enough to form a complete opinion on it. So I'll leave that for the future. But I am pleasantly surprised that they managed to make it playable now. It is still a heavy game, but it's not as heavy as other games that I also currently or occasionally play, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Watch Dogs Legion, which causes driver timeouts because I use AMD because I'm an idiot. So yeah, it's...
Boy, imagine playing games heavily bugged on launch. This will matter in about 5 minutes.
Oh boy. So yeah, I just got it because it was on sale on Steam. So why not? And it's working fine. Working fine, pretty cool. I've also been playing Rogue Genesia, whatever, however you wanna pronounce it.
That they actually upgraded their soundtrack on that game.
Yeah, it's a cool soundtrack.
It's not incredible, but it's better than the thump 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 just basic drum beat that it used to be.
Yeah, I wasn't around for the thump thump thump, but
I was.
Yeah, it's right now it's cool but not memorable. Is how I would describe it.
Yeah,
it's there. It does its job. I've also been playing The Tenants, which I believe is a new game by the same developers of House Flipper, except this one adds a mechanic of putting your buildings up for rent and managing your tenants, which makes it kind of an in-between of The Sims and House Flipper.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is basically the music you would hear in a The Sims build mode.
Yeah, The Tenants sound interesting. I did enjoy the House Flipper. I don't recall that it had any soundtrack at all, though. Does this game?
It has, but it's pretty much what you would expect to hear from the build mode on The Sims.
Okay.
Sort of that soft, jazzy thing that kind of blends into the background. Again, does its job, not very memorable, is how I would describe this one as well. And then, for our main course, I've given a shot to Gungrave Gore. And this is where future Galen is gonna have to censor me a lot again, because there's one word that's gonna come up a lot here, and that word is bullshit.
Oh no.
So, this game...
I have notes on that track, but go on, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, about the soundtrack first, just this is a music podcast, so let's get that out of the way before we make fun of the game. The soundtrack is actually what kind of brought me into the game, because I know the original game. I haven't played it, but I know the original Gungrave from 2002, and I know the Gungrave anime from around that era. And both of those had soundtracks by Tsuneo Mahori. If you're familiar with anime, you might recall that name as being the guy responsible for the Trigun soundtrack, which is amazing.
Okay.
And I've been using the Trigun opening theme as my ringtone for the past 15 years. If you're not familiar with Trigun, he has also played guitars for the Seatbelts, which you might recall as the band that Yoko Kanno made for playing the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack. And he plays with them from time to time, because to this day they still play the soundtrack live on occasion.
Yeah. I remember the live jam session at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether Mahori was part of that or not, but I know he plays with them from time to time. So, dude's a really cool songwriter, dude's a really cool guitarist. I knew he was involved in the past game and anime. I figured, let's give it a shot. The actual soundtrack is kind of lost between alternative metal and an attempt at gothic metal, is how I would describe it. It has some highlights. I haven't played enough for reasons that we will get into in a bit. But I haven't played enough to form a complete opinion of the soundtrack because of that. But the one song...
Regarding that track, what I wrote is that there's the frantic electronics that almost gives me a whiff of Hirota, with a hint of Devil May Cry in the use of those vocals.
Yeah, the song that you gave us for this one, Eddie, I definitely felt a lot more Devil May Cry. It's like Devil May Cry, but hard and edgy.
It's funny you say that, because now we're going to the fun part. This game plays like a poor man's Devil May Cry without the sword. Except
without the sword?
without the sword, you have 2 guns. And you have a big...
I mean, I suppose it's gun grave and not sword grave.
The man has a point.
That's fair.
And along with those 2 guns, you also have a huge edgelord bullshit metal coffin that you carry around by having it stuck to you via chains, and you can swing it for your melee attack. Also, before I forget,
That's the grave part.
no, the grave part I think is the fact that you're named Grave.
Sure.
Can be both. I mean, you have 2 guns. You also have 2 justifications for grave. That's one more than Gold Louis Dickinson.
Fair enough.
Guilty Gear reference.
So yeah, that's the first bit of edgelord bullshit. There's the first cutscene in the game when you're entering the first stage. You are following a group of basically random gangsters, like not from the Prohibition area, just gang members from modern times. And they are walking through a pier. They stop, look at the sky. They think a meteor is coming down, or whatever it is. Turns out the thing that looks like a meteor or a capsule in re-entry is actually your coffin in flames for some reason. And despite the fact that those guys were walking, they weren't standing still, and your coffin has no propulsion, you hit one of them squarely in the chest, destroying the guy. You jump off the coffin, do a somersault, break a dude's neck, then shoot every other single guy in that group, and the cutscene ends with a shot from across the back of one of the dudes with a hole on his chest, like it was a Mortal Kombat fatality. Edgelord bullshit, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The gameplay is just you dodging around and shooting guys. And it...
I feel I became a little more two-dimensional just hearing about that.
When you first described it to me, there was a part of me that thought, like, maybe this is a parody. Maybe it's like, the setting is just so ridiculous and backwards and over the top. It's a Warhammer 40k thing where a lot of people seem to like it kind of semi-ironically, and it's popular among comedians for how just over the top it is. But now it's starting to sound like, no, they're just that serious about it.
Yeah, and also another fun fact: the gore in Gungrave Gore is an acronym, GORE. Anyone want to take a shot at what it means? Without
I'm bad
looking
at
at
acronyms.
Wikipedia?
I'm bad at acronyms. I'm not gonna play this game, unfortunately.
So it's Gunslinger of Resurrection. The RE stand for resurrection.
And they included the O. That's trying way too hard. That is,
Yes,
as acronyms go, that was trying way too hard.
And also, this is from a game that has an execution mechanic, as pretty much every third-person action/shooter game since the first God of War has, where you can grab an enemy who's close and just finish them off if they are stunned. This game has that execution mechanic as well, but apparently calling it an execution wasn't edgy enough, so they call it RIP. Except the RIP doesn't stand for Rest in Peace, it stands for Raging Immortal
Rapid
Punisher.
input. Get it wrong.
Yeah, Raging Immortal Punisher. Because I think you're kind of a zombie or whatever. Honestly, the only line I've heard my character say thus far has been a groan. So he might as well be a zombie. He does carry his grave around, his coffin around. So, again,
It's grave.
edgelord bullshit. I will quote a YouTuber called Josh Strive Hayes, because there is one particular quote from him that I really love, and which describes this game really well. And it's that it's a pizza cutter, because it's all edge and no point. So yeah,
I've heard the comparison.
Yep. So that's been what I've been playing. How about you, Rana?
Well, I've played one game. It's Pokemon.
You and about everyone else that I know, it seems like.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of reason for that. The game is cool, but I'm going to address the downfall in the room. It's very buggy.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I did encounter, there's some crashes, there's the camera that hangs out under the geometry more often than not. My personal favorite is that there are what I can only assume are Pokeball-shaped markers for when they designed the geometry for some sub-areas like grottos and a few rooms, and they forgot to clean about half of them. Which means that on occasion, you enter a room and there's just a useless tiny Pokeball in there. Because it's a beta marker. Because the game has the polish level of a beta. A late beta, but a beta anyway. And it affected the music too. I kept playing for a while, and I put the game on sleep mode rather than shut it down completely between sessions. Apparently there was a memory leak bug linked to that, which meant that after clearing all of the gyms and facing the Elite Four, instead of having the full escalation of the evolutive music of this fight, I had the same early 15-second loop repeated again and again for all 4 fights against all 20 Pokemon.
Now, as you said, apparently that's a memory leak, and I don't know how a memory leak could cause that to happen. I've heard something like that happen before, like if a programmer fails to set the loops properly. Like, I know that can happen for sure. Like, here's the loop that plays with this part of the fight going on, but then here's some script that says, all right, now we're changing to these looping points, these time codes, and that just never happened. Something like that actually happened in Level Saga. One of the boss themes actually had a bad loop point because I'm guessing the programmer just made a mistake and it missed QA. Sometimes these things happen. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounded like something like that happened.
It is impossible to go through that game without bugs.
Yeah. And then you're coming in with but this game is a disaster. This one was a memory leak that caused this to happen, and apparently shutting off the switch and then turning it back on actually fixes this problem. I don't know how that would even happen. I don't understand how the memory would have anything to do with those commands to begin with.
I don't know, but apparently that's the fix from people that actually heard the full song. And now that I'm past the Elite Four, the only way I can hear it again is if I lock out and have it as one of the tracks that plays during an online match.
Yeah, you actually played a YouTube video of both the oh god, why intro only 15-second loop one and the actual song. The actual song's actually pretty legit.
Yeah.
Too bad people can't hear it because
the rest of that soundtrack.
Yeah, apparently this thing was coded. I'm gonna steal Eddie's joke here. Apparently this thing was coded by Bethesda.
I was gonna say that. I was just gonna repeat what I said on Discord. Did they outsource QA and optimization to Bethesda here? Because
I think
Skyrim
I'm the one
wasn't as
among
bad.
us three that has the least love for Bethesda. And when I read that line, my first reflex was to say it's not as bad as Bethesda, but it is.
I don't know what makes you
hurts to
think
say,
I have
but it
any
is.
love for Bethesda. I appreciate that they published Wolfenstein. That's about as far as my love for them goes.
My thought is that they never finished a game on release.
No, they never have. We've talked about
Never.
this before.
Yeah.
I have never
They do
disagreed
20%
with
of the
that.
work,
Just-
modders do the other 80. That's the Bethesda
Exactly.
way. And everything
Just-
they've developed goes like that.
Yes. and somehow people forget.
Despite enjoying Skyrim as an RPG sandbox, I have never disagreed with those comments, because those are 100% fair.
Yeah.
And
it's a shame that Pokemon is going that road, because by all means, Arceus earlier this year he didn't have that many technical problems.
I played it. There was, I think, a couple of crashes, but for the most part, whatever. It was not that bad. I enjoyed it fine. It felt like a complete game. I don't really have anything negative to say about it.
I don't think I don't think we've seen this level of glitches and bugs on Pokemon since Generation 1?
Yeah, I actually saw a run that was titled, "Is it possible to even complete Pokemon without any bug?" The answer was no, by the way. The intro screen has the wrong shout for one of the Pokemon on screen. You cannot skip it, which means that you literally cannot go and push any input in the first Pokemon game without encountering a bug.
I saw that video too. That's great. That was for the first gen, right? Red and blue.
Yeah, and that one was basically trying to put a game way too big for the cartridge it was sitting on. This one doesn't have that sort of excuses, and like I said, it's not what I want to focus on, because ultimately I finished the game for a reason. It was fun, and it's probably the most ambitious Pokemon game they released in years. Maybe since second gen or something, but I cannot in good conscience talk about the game without talking about how completely bug-riddled it is.
Yeah, the recurring theme with this game amongst people I know who've played it seems to be it's a great game under all the bugs.
Yes, and it is, and the soundtrack is also really great. It does exactly that thing I love, which is having music that evolves during the situation. Of course, you still have the part for gym fights where it escalates when you go past the first Pokemon, and again during the fight against the enemy trainer's ace,
right,
where the crowd starts chanting. Although Sword and Shield did that specific case better. But then they also do it for the whole overworld, where you have, in particular for the track I chose to underline, the western area that's more desertic, where you have kind of a lone western theme when you are just on foot, that gets more active when you are on your bike Pokemon, and that gets really, really good when you are fighting random wild Pokemon. And it goes seamlessly from one to the next, and it's great. And that's the least of the things to love about that game. The progression is interesting. The worst thing I can say on a design-wise is that some ideas, such as the parallel storyline throughout the overworld, are a bit undercooked by moment. But even the plot had some solid points on a Pokemon game.
Yeah, that's very rare. Speaking as a guy who gets his collectathon stuff from the Shin Megami Tensei side, which is always very, maybe not plot heavy, but always very, deep question heavy. Hearing that Pokemon is actually starting to have some of these points, and I will admit that some of the points raised about the spectator sport nature of it in Sword and Shield were actually very interesting with what little I played of that before the pandemic hit.
I love that.
Yeah. Now if only the gameplay was as fun. I'm sorry, I really liked Arceus, but the general Pokemon gameplay loop just doesn't really click with me. I don't like the battle system that much. It feels really I understand there's depth there, but compared to SMT, it's hard for me to enjoy the battles too much.
Fair enough. I fully understand, even though I'm more on the Pokemon side of things, and had great fun actually running throughout the main storyline with a Ghost-only team once I had enough Ghost-type Pokemon to make a team.
That is very neat that you could do that too. I will say, one of the things I really appreciate about Arceus was the way their boss fights worked. Yes, the battles were there, but there was also a lot of we gave you this big platforming and traversal system, let's use it.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
They reset back on it because it's a mainline Pokemon game, and I think they struck the right balance between not making Arceus not a thing, which they do for like 90% of their past games mechanic. Where are my Mega Evolutions, Game Freaks? But to still have it feel like a mainline Pokemon game, which it very much does, all while having not a single Pokemon that is hidden in tall herbs.
Hidden in what?
In tall grass.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
It sounded like you said tall
Such
herbs,
my
and I'm like...
sentence. Yeah, no, that's what I said.
Oh, okay.
But I used the wrong words, and then I thought a little more and used the right ones.
There we go. Yeah, I was very confused. Like, herds? So there's like a random Bouffalant herd, and then there's some fancy Pokemon.
Oh no, I meant herbs.
Herbs. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just thought herd of Bouffalant, and there's some Pokemon hidden in the middle of that you had to find. That was where my brain was.
That's kind of the case in two ways. Because there are some Pokemon that appear in groups with like the first stage evolution, there's 5 of them, with an evolved version in the middle. Which is nice, especially since there's a Pokemon that works by taking the sub-leaders with the same Pokemon and beating them up until you've proven you're the boss. And there's some Pokemon that hide as other Pokemon. That's how you find in the wilds Metamorphs and Zoras. They disguise themselves as other Pokemon in the wild. That's really cool.
Okay, I actually dig that. That's a cool concept.
Yeah, I liked it when the Pokemon TCG did it, where they had, in your rare slot, suddenly there was a common terrible Pokemon, but it's actually just a layer, and if you peel it off, there's the Ditto underneath. And I like it there.
I would hate that because you're risking damage to the card, but that is actually very cute.
Yes. Anyway, that's Pokemon. It was fun, buggy. If you can, I would recommend playing it eventually. Like when there's some expansion content and a lot of bug fixes, and it should be a great time.
It's a shame that the bugs kind of took over the conversation.
That and the fact that there is, like I said, some a bit undercooked features. Like, the online worked pretty well. You can do basically the whole game while existing in another player's world, and it's great.
That's awesome.
Such a shame
That's neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. The problem is that if you want to, say, trade a Pokemon with somebody who's on that world, you have to leave the world, enter the separate online menu, and trade from there.
Oh, come on.
Ooh.
You're already in their world. How hard is it? Oh. That actually is really disappointing. I'm sure there's some specific
and
reason.
it feels like a feature that would have been made usable, sensible, and refined if the game was afforded a few more months to get in the oven by the management.
I guess we're praying for patches now. But between rushing this game out the door for the Christmas holiday, which it would have sold gangbusters no matter. Yeah, it absolutely was. It would have sold gangbusters no matter when it came out. Let's just be honest here. But between that and their recent treatment of the Smash World Tour, which I don't like Smash, I don't really like Smashers, but holy crap, did Nintendo do them dirty.
Yeah. Yes.
Between that, I'm really, getting angry at Nintendo now. I've always had that kind of, low-key disrespect for them, but it's starting to really get somewhere to me now.
I feel that they have an infinite amount of goodwill, and that isn't the case.
No, it isn't.
I've stopped playing EA games, I've stopped playing Ubisoft games, I've stopped playing Activision Blizzard games. I can stop playing any company's games that are too distasteful for me.
I don't give a dime to Disney anymore unless I forget that a movie is produced by Searchlight Features, which is what happened to me recently, but Disney owns way too much. It's hard to keep my fingers out of every single pie they're in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
that was a nice way to circle around, I think.
I think so too. It's a shame what's going on with Nintendo, but Pokemon Scarlet and Violet does seem like a great game under there. And on that somber note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. I believe that is all the time we have. However, next episode is going to be our 2-year anniversary of Music Arcade. I am so glad to be doing the show with you guys. You have no idea. We get to explore so many cool topics and so many cool songs and so many cool soundtracks, and we're going to have plenty to say on that next episode. As always, you can check out the music we talked about, as well as how to get in contact with us in the episode description. See you next time for the 2-year anniversary of Music Arcade. Have a good one, everybody.
See you.
See you next time.